Hi, my name is Jerry Henry. I'm actually here with the director and co-cinematographers for the documentary YANUNI. I'm here with Richard and Fabio. Richard, I met you. Actually, I hosted a screening in Los Angeles. After seeing the film, I saw it three times, actually. I'm gonna
Oh
just
wow.
say it.
Oh wow.
The first time I saw it, it was one of my required screenings because I'm an Academy member. So um, you know, just to be frank, we get a lot of films that we have to watch. I've watched probably over 200 documentaries so far this season. And, you know, when you're watching the films, I'm watching them at home. And so, you turn on, get your coffee and you're just sort of kind of watching. But I just remember like the opening shot just captured me immediately. I actually paused. I got all of my snacks. I turned the lights down and I was on the ride for the entire film. I mean, just from the opening shot, I was that engaged. And then what ended up happening after is Laura next to him. It's one of my colleagues. She was one of the producers on the film.
Yeah,
She
executive
asked me to,
producers. Yeah.
executive producer, she asked me to host the screening and I hadn't seen it on the screen. So I was like, absolutely. And it was the same thing when I saw it. Then that was the third time I saw it because after I saw the film the first time, a couple days later, I rewatched it. I have so many questions for you because as a cinematographer, one of the things that, drew me to your film was just how visually poetic your film was. And I guess my first question is how did you determine the style that you wanted to shoot the film in? Because it's a verite doc that follows your main character, but just how did you decide on the visual style that you wanted to capture and your approach?
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for your words there. Amazing. Three times and going. So thank you, thank you. Look, the visual style for the film wasn't like I didn't have a pre-idea, like a preset idea. It all came through Juma. So I met
Yeah.
Juma, who's this indigenous leader that to me speaks like a poet and who lives a life that is focused in thought and visions,
Mhm.
and she's a character that pauses and that takes time to see you. That's how this film starts. She just sees
Yeah.
you and then life begins. So it's always contemplation and thought and poetry and a connection to nature. And just as I'm saying these things, I knew this film had to have a very poetic feeling to it and a slow pace that is intercut by extremes, right? Because her life is a constant crisis. Everything that happens is life
Mm,
and death. She constantly faces threats. She survived six attempts in her
mm,
life. And yet she's a mother. She loves her children and her family and her husband, and she loves nature. So those kind of yin and yang feelings of like chaos and poetry were the guiding principles for the visuals in the film. And that's in a way how we went at it. And also the other thing that was very important was her security situation again
mm.
demanded a special kind of technique because we needed to keep the profile of the film shoot as small and as invisible as possible. Like basically, I wanted people to think this is some kind of tourist with a camera who's kind
Mm.
of following her around, insignificant, doesn't mean anything. So often, even in public, we would take the top mic off. We would use a small DSLR
Mm.
camera and shoot as if I'm photographing her, like not even
Yeah.
film. So we used hidden mics that would record all day. We used really good camera and really good lenses, but like we tried to keep the profile low. So this invisibility idea combined with verite of like never interfering, just letting go, then brought in the need and the necessity of a second cinematographer who's
Yeah.
Fabio Nascimento, who's an amazing cinematographer who was recommended to me, who's worked with indigenous people, who understood what I was trying to do very well. And so when when Fabio was able to come along, which wasn't like all the time, like a lot of the film I had to shoot myself, but maybe
Yeah.
like 40% of the film, I was able to bring Fabio on as like a second point of view. And then we agreed on like he would shoot the long lens, and be kind of even further removed from the scene so he can give me close-ups and intercut, and I would be the guiding story cameraman that would dance around Juma. And this is in a way how we went at it. And I always call it a dance, Fabio, right? Like
Yes.
we're dancing with Juma
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
dancing with each other.
Yeah.
And that's how I think that's how the film kind of took on its form and shape.
So I guess to leads me to my next question for you, Fabio. At some point when you're collaborating with another cinematographer who's also the director, I guess I wanted to know was there a moment when you guys were shooting that you might have had maybe differing instincts or perspectives, but it led you to like a breakthrough or stronger scene?
Well, I guess, well, first, from the very beginning, among the various reasons I wanted to work with Richie was the fact to bring this story that I was already working with indigenous people to a
Mm,
very next level, to make it look like the most amazing thing you can see in this realm. And one thing that we quickly learned is that we had a similar way of filming
yeah,
and a way of how we appreciate and love image and how to tell these stories through something that is appealing to your eyes just as much as the rest of the story. So I think that part of the way that we danced around the scenes and the way that we were seeing the scenes before shooting them was kind of similar.
okay,
And this is kind of a gift because you cannot assume that beforehand. So when we start seeing each other's rushes at the very beginning, we were like, okay, this we are on the same frequency, on the same way of seeing things. To a point that uh, when we watched the first cut of the film, we couldn't distinguish anymore because we didn't remember
yeah,
who was in which angle. And we
yeah,
were like, we can't tell who shot what. And that's quite amazing. It's just really a gift to have
yeah,
between
Yeah.
the two of us. And I think that the fact that we have a similar view, but not necessarily having the same shots, just make that everyone's shots was getting better because of the result of the combination of the
yeah,
two. And part of that is the fact that we discussed a lot to get the right approach, to have the same approach, but something that just comes before that, which is the way that we craft imagery in the
yeah.
film was similar. And this is a big, big gift.
So I'm gonna get a little selfish here, and I want to know what you guys used as far as your cameras, also your drones, and then lenses, and what was the deciding factor. I know that you said you wanted a small footprint, but the thing that I noticed immediately was how rich the colors were. So I'm curious of like, lensing and that sort of thing, and if there were like focal lengths that you sort of gravitated towards. I know you said you were on a longer lens, Fabio, and then you would sort of be on the, maybe something a little looser, but like maybe you could talk about the technical aspects.
Yeah. So the for this film, I bought this equipment, because I was like, I
Mm,
was trying to have the right gear for the right. It's always like that, the right gear for the right project. I don't care what's in my
yeah,
basement. Like
yeah,
if it's not the right gear, I need to get new gear. So it has to fit the project. So the main camera that I used was the Canon R5C, which is a very small
mm,
DSLR that came out like 3 years ago, I think,
yeah.
2022 maybe, 2021, somewhere there. And that's like that was the main camera, and I used the 24-105 zoom,
Oh
which is
wow.
the four, with an aperture four, with a variable ND filter between lens and zoom, which
Yeah,
only Canon provides. That camera has that
yeah,
variable ND. So I try to keep it at an f4 at all times. It's a full frame camera, so focus is a challenge, but at a four you can manage. And basically, that was the one lens that I went with for most of the film because that's how I can cover an entire
yeah.
scene. It's telephoto enough to kind of get your close-ups. It's wide enough to kind of capture the whatever you need. And I also, I don't use zooms, but I hack into my position if I need to. I would go, I would just kind of like jam it to where it needs to be if I need to push in. And often I would
Yeah,
leave that in the edit because I'm not afraid of showing that there is a cinematographer behind, this
I
film.
see.
I don't, I've sort of stopped thinking, oh, I have to be invisible. I have actually, in this film, you even notice in the first shot, like how I'm like pulling out and reframing and focusing. It's on purpose because I wanted people to feel this is real. There's a guy,
Yeah,
there's a crew there who's trying to tell her story, and it's okay. Even when things go bad and wrong, it's sometimes okay to feel like, oh my God, there's actually someone there filming this who could die right now. Remember when that
yeah,
boat blew up? Like it's
yeah.
like this consciousness of a crew, I think, is fine. But basically, it was that I did have all the other lenses, the 100 to 500, the RF, and I had the wide, like 15 to 35, but I didn't use any primes because for the flexibility of the shoot and the unpredictability, I'm not a fan of using primes that will limit you in
Okay.
case you need to go
Yeah,
wide or you need to push in. I rather, just, forget about the beauty of the lens. I need to tell my story. That's the director speaking here, right?
right.
So it's not always that. And Fabio, you speak to your gear because we were combining. So we did have a second C70 that Fabio
Mm,
was often using. So we stay on the same Canon, but that I think I bought that a bit later because we were shooting over the course of 4 years.
Yeah.
And Fabio,
mm.
what is it you have?
So at the very beginning, I was shooting throughout the film in moments where I was on my own. I was using a Sony FX6,
Okay.
which is slightly bigger than this, but still keeps it very flexible and fast.
Yeah,
If we were climbers, we would be way more towards free soloing. So go light and
sure,
go fast
sure.
because it's more important to be in the scene. And this is something I always also like about working with Richard, which is being in the scene and being there all the time until that magic moment happens in front of you. So you have to be light, you have to be fast. So it was also using FX6, which is also super light and fast and delivers uh, good good content. And you asked also about drone, that we
Yes.
were, because at the same time that we were interested in the best cinematography as possible, but also being fast and flexible. So we were shooting with small drones most of the time because you can just deploy it quickly and still get amazing stuff. But when possible, shooting on Inspire and getting the right time and filming on two pilots and then getting shot again and again until you get it like the most perfect version of it. But both things are important, and maybe most importantly is being flexible and fast and compact. And
Yeah, I mean, talking about drones, the one the Mavic 3 Cine is the main
Okay.
one, and it's so small and fast that when I was, for example, on these Ibama missions where it just was me and I had to have everything on me all day and I couldn't even, you know, have any extra bag or anything, I had it on my belt. I was literally have it like a lens. The,
Oh,
the the
wow.
drone was just
Yeah,
hanging off my belt and it was like packed into my like gear and I would be able to launch it in like 30 seconds, just get it up, boom, 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 out and go and then catch it again. But then we also had the Inspire 3, which is the newest model, which is a giant
yeah,
drone. And it's really
yeah,
amazing because it has the 8K and you can change the lenses and you can do like amazing stuff.
yeah,
So we did use that, but only we're able actually to bring it in on a few shoots because it's just too clumsy and takes two
yeah,
pilots and but I
yeah,
do notice the difference because of the lens change. So in the film when we did use it, it is like much more like a helicopter camera on a gimbal because it just can
yeah,
do different things and it does give you that extra kick. So yeah, but it's a big beast, very kind of
yeah.
clumsy and it takes time and preparations. But yeah, we use that as well.
So actually, I mean, you know what? I'm also interested in it. Even, we're talking about cinematography, but there's also sort of uh, some the ethicalness of it, I guess. And so, my question for you both is: were there ever times where you felt like your presence with the camera influence the scene? And if so, how did you handle that? And I'm also curious of if, was there any moments where you decided that you weren't going to film?
Yeah, I think um so it's a great question. And it makes me think of mo like take me back into the shoot of like these moments that were extreme. I mean, the one that comes to mind where I felt really, it was so hard what to do was there's a moment in a car where she finds out that a friend of hers had committed suicide, and it's
Yeah.
she's live on a call, and I'm in her face, shooting from the driver's like the from the front, and she's sitting in the back, and I'm like right there, right? And she starts breaking down and crying, and like really breaking down, like really saw like there comes a moment where the tears flows, and she just like
Mm,
closes her eyes and sobs. And it was this moment where I was just like, what do I do? My instinct is move away. And then it's exactly that's what I did. I held it for as long and painful as I could, but moved the camera off her, and actually
yeah.
kept rolling when I did that into a black dark spots, because I felt this is the right thing to do right now. And it was like you look at it in shock of like, oh my God, she's breaking. Oh, this is really bad. And then you just hold one extra second, and then I went away, and I kept that in the film so that people could feel the, this decency in a way of like, I've
Yeah.
decided to move away. But then in other moments, we were filming with her family. I mean, with her husband, for example, very intimate scenes, where he goes on his next mission, and she's afraid, and she's like, "Don't go, please.
Yeah.
It's gonna be dangerous." And he's like, "I have to go. It's gonna be fine." And I remember, I think we were both there, Fabio, and I was like in the bathroom where the light was off, and
Mm,
and and Fabio was outside in the hallway where the light was off, and we were shooting on long lenses, and it was basically I really felt they forgot that we were there. Like it wasn't they were in the
mm,
moment, and we would just kind of roll, and I was like, wow, they're actually having an argument. And
mm.
it got even more emotional and a little more, uh yes, like intimate, I would say, than what you see in the film. And I
Yeah.
remember they will soon like get the fuck out. They're gonna like actually
Yeah.
gonna like notice like,
Yeah.
what the fuck are you still here filming? But
Yeah.
what happened in reality was they actually forgot we were there. Like it was like
Mm,
they didn't like it just played out, and I felt like we have achieved what we wanted to achieve, the invisibility factor, to kind of be with
mm.
them and
Yeah.
not actually. And she did say to me that night, Richard, it's so crazy. You have become like to the point where we don't even know you're there anymore, like a piece of furniture in the corner that you forgot it even existed. And I was like, great, that's what we wanted, right? Fabio, I mean, how did you
Yeah.
experience these
Yeah,
moments?
and I think that's the fact that we spent so much time with her, with them, and we developed this super close relationship. You also start learning how to read the person quite quickly, even especially maybe in difficult moments. And you mentioned this scene that we shot in New York, that in the middle of the event, she breaks up and she leaves the venue. And I remember I was shooting from like front of the stage, and Richard was on sides, and then she
Yeah.
just stood up and left. And then we both walked towards the
Yeah.
door, and we just met each other, me and Richard, at the door. And we just said each other, let's just give space.
Mm,
But even turning that into something beautiful and meaningful for the story. And we shot through the door's window, and you could like just see this
yeah.
moment of vulnerability there, and but still respecting her space and time for her to come back from this difficult moment. But I think it comes a lot from the fact that we learned a lot about ourselves through the course of the years of filming, and we just start reading these small details of the person's behavior and
Yes.
finding the sweet spot of telling the story in the right moments, but still keeping it respectful at all times.
but then there's this other thing that's also happening in the film. And there's those moments like that, but it's incredibly dangerous. Like the situations that you all were filming under. I'm always curious when I watch a film where people are really in these dangerous situations where there are times when you just sort of kind of forget that you actually are not invincible and that you're like running into these situations head on. Like I'm just curious how you are able to navigate that, or is it something that you have so much adrenaline and then after the fact you're like, that was pretty crazy actually, especially that even the scene when they're trying to get this rope and it's sinking in, and I'm like, Jesus, man, like at one point, you're gonna just throw the camera away and save your life.
Yeah.
So
Well,
before you got into this, because you were there, I remember. So Richard was filming. We met at the airport. He opened up his laptop. He pressed play and was like, "Look at what just happened." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Man, this is absolutely crazy." I'm glad you're here showing me this.
yeah. Look, this was one of the most dangerous moments, I think, in my filming career because it was literally
Mm.
seconds from it from us
Yeah.
all blowing up. And I don't
Yeah.
know if I've ever come that close during a film. I mean, Sea of Shadows, there were shots fired and I can remember the bullets flying and that was crazy. But yeah, this one was quite extraordinary. And I remember every second of it again in like slow motion. But let's take a step back first. You know, when I started these Ibama missions, they told me it can only be you, one
Mm.
person on the chopper.
Yeah.
You're taking the seat of a
Yeah.
soldier. So we're going to be one man down in security, and you will have to take care of your own security, and you will have to watch out
Yeah.
that nothing happens to you because we can't spend any energy or manpower to protect you. You'll have to protect yourself. Are you willing to go? You know, like, and I said, yes. You know, I mean, it was a 3 months bureaucracy nightmare to get like the permits and to get all the waivers signed of like, in case I die, I'm not going to sue them and all
Yeah.
these things because they knew
Yeah.
that this is going to be extraordinary. And they had actually never allowed ever a film crew or a film person to accompany them on a full mission ever before. So this was the first time that actually happened. And that was for me also significant because okay, I'm entering unprecedented territory. You know, they've allowed journalists to follow them on like a pre-coordinated helicopter tour, you know, for a day or a few hours, yes. But that thing, what we did, like going in for like 2 weeks straight and being in the jungle and
Mm.
sleeping there in the jungle and living the life of, the soldier life, that was new and that has never happened. So I knew this was going to be tricky. And then when when things happen, I mean, a lot of things happen during these raids. I mean, we would be going in with helicopters and touching down and landing and takeoff like 15 times per day in the most severe, difficult like circumstances. There's like wires of these machines in the air. There's like tree lines and they come down in the mud and you jump out and you enter like you're up to your hip in mud. Suddenly you have to dig out of mud and then
Yeah.
keep going. Like there was so much craziness that in the end, in a way, you get used to this, but you still need to be mindful. Don't make a mistake, right? But then when this thing on the boat happened where the rope, it was actually a chain, got jammed and we couldn't clear away
Yeah.
as we had planned and the thing was about to blow, that was when I literally felt, okay, what am I going to do now? But the one thing that I didn't do was turn off the camera. I was thinking the whole
Mm.
time, how am I going to save my life? What is going to happen now? Like, what do I do? They were telling me to jump in the water, to jump, jump. But they were screaming, jump, Richard, jump, And I was like, but you're not jumping. It's your life too. So if you're not jumping, I'm not jumping. And I'll keep rolling because you want to save your life. So it's like this, I'm going to watch you, what you do. And when you jump, I jump. But like, so
Yeah.
as this is playing out, and they're shooting with the pump gun and with the machine gun to get away the chain and the pressure gauge, rising, and you could feel the pressure rising with this woo, like in a cattle, that's about to kind of be going. Um, that's when I was like, everything was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, and but I just kept wide and rolling, and that was the thing because I was here to do a job to
Yeah.
to 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 document what was happening in that moment, and literally. when they decided to jump, and you see it in the final seconds,
Yeah.
they are running to the back of the boat to jump off the boat. And I'm like, okay, this is it. And then Hugo kills the chain and it goes, and he's like, I
Yeah.
got it, and we back off and the whole thing blows. So, I mean, that was intense. Yeah. But it's how it is. I actually, yeah, it's a good story now, but
Yeah.
it was crazy.
I'm curious for both of you, are there any like tools in your arsenal that you must, have and that you used or maybe introduced when you were shooting the film that maybe you hadn't used on another project, or if there's something that you have to have? Like for me, when I'm shooting, I know sometimes it's not the right tool, but like Easy Rig is the thing that I sort of kind of default to if I can. And if I don't, I have like this little, it's not a sack, it's like a little pouch with a monopod that I cut in half and I wear it on my belt so that I can use it to sort of kind of stabilize and hold my camera. But I mean, it looks crazy, but it works. I'm just curious if there's anything that you guys have that that's like a must-have when you're shooting, when you were working on this film or in general.
Interesting question. Fabio, you first.
Yeah, good one. I think that for this film, the main goal was to keep it so light and flexible and portable that our main to go kit was the minimal. So we are having pretty much like camera body and lens. But one thing that I think that played a huge difference in this film was the fact that uh, as trying to be as small as possible as a crew, um, having a person dedicated to sound was always a big question. Because you add one extra person, you had a huge microphone,
Yeah,
etc. And then the 32-bit float labs for us should have
yeah, yeah.
proper sound. That was like this tiny compact thing that played a big difference in this film, and it was quite recent. We wouldn't be able to do that specific kind of sound 5 years ago without this 32-bit
So,
float
so it was
microphone. So
literally just the two of you the whole time. That was like your crew. Was it the two of you? Like, did you ever have anyone else, or was it just the two of you? Like,
It was like we had maybe, like if you're talking percentage, I think average maybe 10 to 15% with a sound
yeah,
man, like who was doing
yeah,
boom. It may even be as little as 10%, Fabio. I don't know. Maybe,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
like
I think
literally
so.
like
wow,
that. Then like 40%, I would say 35%, 40%, hard to say. Fabio was there to kind of do second camera. So, and then
yeah,
the rest of it, it was just me alone. And the reason literally was, it wasn't budget. It was keep it intimate.
yeah,
Don't be like keep the visibility in a way publicly as low as possible for security reasons, because again, she had survived 6 attempts in her life. So if we walk around a city and we film with two cameras, people are
yeah,
going to start talking. This looks professional. So what's going on
yeah,
here? It raises it. So
yeah,
it was like when I was in Altamira, for example, we wouldn't like publicly, it was mostly one camera. And then in the car, we would use a second camera, but kind of not walk out with two cameras. And then at home, we would use two cameras if possible. It was often me being inside
yeah,
close and Fabio shooting from the window on a long lens, just to also keep the privacy, and keep them unaware of this. Like there's a crew here, I just wanted them to forget about us. So because we have done this for a long time, I mean, I've been shooting for more than 25 years, so there's a lot of experience to kind of like, what can you do? So for me, when you talked about tools as well, for me, there was nothing specific. I really just needed my camera and my zoom lens so
yeah,
I can cover those mics. I would have said as well, they were a game changer. If they hadn't, they came out like 3 years ago, the 32 bits where you don't have to level, you can do it in post. So
yeah,
from whisper to
oh,
screaming, you have sound. And she
yeah,
would wear that mic for like 10 hours per day. And it was, and we would use six of them if necessary. With Ibama, I had six, like every soldier had a lab under their bulletproof vest. And so the soundscape worked. That wouldn't have been possible before, right? And then,
yeah,
um, and for me, it's this having this second cinematographer help cover the scenes. that is another tool that I, if whenever possible, I would bring Fabio, and then in a way that's it. So it's not some, for example, I don't use gimbals at all because I
Yeah.
need to be punching in on the zoom and refocusing. Man, I need to touch the
Yeah.
lens and the camera a lot, and the gimbal it makes me too
Yeah.
less flexible. You know, like you can't just kind of go crazy. You have to then follow the rules of the gimbal. And so, in a way, I think new technology allows us now to go deeper. And remember, I
Yeah.
that's the first time I'm shooting with a DSLR. Like the two films before, I was using a massive Amira, which was like a rocket
Yeah.
launcher on my shoulder, and I was in love with it. It was like
Yeah.
my go-to camera for everything. And now I'm like on a camera that's 1/10 of the size. So the camera is just a
Yeah.
tool. You need the right tool to tell your story, and that's how I approach it.
Yeah.
On top of all that, we were filming on a very hot and humid environment, carrying heavy gear through the forest, for example. And I remember us carrying around the Inspire 3 case in the forest. And if you do
Mm.
that for the entire film, you don't, or if you do that with an Amira for the
Right.
entire film, you just don't get the shot you need. So
Yeah.
we just like
And I mean,
brought
your lens
everything
was
like,
fogging up probably, and lens was probably
Oh
fogging
yeah,
up,
it was
and
that
you
too,
know,
yeah.
that was a
yeah,
big
you had to
problem.
make them acclimate them, and yeah. And I guess this is my final question. For both of you, like, what do you hope like fellow cinematographers learn from your visual processes? Well, while you were making the film. Once when they watch the film, what do you want them to take from it visually, or if there's anything that you want them to feel?
Mm, interesting, Fabio.
Well, I
Give me
think
time
that
to
there are
think.
things combined between what we would like people to feel, and I think there's something beautiful in this film, which is really being there on what's going on, being as close as possible to the action, and by doing so, you can see and as a consequence feel so much more of what the character is going through.
Yeah.
If you manage to really, if you think of the protest scenes or these very emotional moments, that the camera can be so close that we hope that that can transmit uh, with some dignity of all of the emotions of these characters. And one thing that you asked also for cinematographers watching it, there is something interesting that so often the debate around cinematography is a technological debate on uh, the
Yeah.
best camera, the best lenses, and having the best sensor and the best everything. And when you have such strong stories like that, uh, what matters the least is having the best ARRI sensor and the best engineer
Gotcha.
lenses in you, but being there with the gear that is right for that story, for you to be able to tell that story. And then the debate is not technological anymore. It's what to do with the tools that you chose as the right tools for that specific story.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Fabio, wonderfully said. Like
Yeah.
again, like I would have said it like that as well. That's how much
Yeah.
we are in sync. we
Yeah,
we agree on this
that's
very
why.
much, and
Yeah,
it's this one. Yeah, I've learned maybe a little anecdote. I've learned in my life that beautiful cinematography is not gonna save a film ever. So
Right.
don't think about cinematography first. Don't think this has to be shot this way. This has to be beautifully lit. It has to be, like we need a crane or we need a dolly move or we need this. And it has to serve, the story. That's it. The
Yeah.
story comes first. So whatever helps tell the story in the most, you know, in the best way where it's not influenced by camera moves, where you don't distract through camera moves where it's always with the story. That is the most important thing. When a camera starts to distract you because it's doing something
Yes.
technical that is beautiful, it can get you out of the film and it can destroy what you're trying to achieve. So being a director and cinematographer in that way helps because I will always serve the story first, and then try to do my best through technology and camera to tell that story.
Well, I thank you both for taking the time today to talk to me about cinematography, and I'm ready for my fourth watch.
Great.
Thank you,
Thanks a
man.
lot for
Yeah,
that, man.
absolutely. No, I'm just learning a lot, and again, like I love to have these conversations because, again, I'm being a little selfish. I just want to, I'm learning too as I'm watching. So I appreciate you both. Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks a
so
lot,
much.
Jerry.
This was great.
All right.